All right, and we are live on YouTube. Welcome, everybody, to the Brave Mystic Training Open House. We're excited that you're here. I am joined by my co-founder of Brave Mystic Training, Shveta, as well as several graduates of the original Brave Mystic Training Cohort. And today we are going to give you a behind-the-scenes look into what Brave Mystic Training is all about. So the first Brave Mystic Training Cohort began in April of this year. It's a 99-day, 14-week exploration of the concepts of authorship and simulation mastery. And we started Brave Mystic Training really as kind of an experimental curriculum. We wanted to convene a group of people and do a deep dive, highly focused exploration of these topics, authorship and simulation mastery. We wanted to see what would happen if we got a group of people together and did an intensive, focused exploration of these ideas over an extended period of time. And what we found really, I want to say, surprised us. We didn't really know exactly what to expect. Obviously, we were imagining wisely, we were imagining a very beautiful outcome. So in a way, it was surprising, but also exactly as imagined. We witnessed some pretty profound transformation. We're going to hear from the graduates later on towards the end of this live stream about what that transformation has been for them. So let me start just by introducing a little bit about what Brave Mystic Training is. So the Mystic Path can feel lonely. This training is designed as both an inward journey, deeper into the mastery of authorship and the topic of simulation mastery, and it's also designed as a collective journey. This is an opportunity to connect with a group of global mystics who are focused on these same ideas for the same window of time. So what is Brave Mystic Training? Well, it's a 99-day intensive immersive. It's not just a class. We're not even really calling it a course. We feel like classes and courses, it feels kind of old and tired as an idea. We believe that training is the way forward. And training means a structured path, daily prompts, live weekly sessions, 2 of them per week, 2 live weekly sessions per week, and an environment, a digital environment that invites community collaboration and reflections. And the purpose of Brave Mystic Training is not to learn something new, although you will be learning new things. This really is a cutting edge experience. We get into areas that we haven't seen anyone else talk about, not because newness in and of itself is the point, but because we really do seek to lead the conversation in terms of where we're willing to go and where we're willing to boldly tread as authors. So you will not just learn something new. Really, the purpose of Brave Mystic Training is to remember something original, to remember that we have always been the author, to remember that authorship is our original state of being. Now, training is different from just casual spirituality. We like to think of it as an athlete crossing over from amateur into professional. Brave Mystic Training is exactly that. It's a commitment to cross over from amateur authorship, which is basically just, oh, let me try to figure this out on my own, perhaps inconsistently applying the ideas or, applying it for a day or two and then forgetting about it for a week or two. Brave Mystic Training exists to create a focused container of space where you can move from being an amateur explorer of the ideas to being a professional who trains authorship daily as a skill. Now, the core arc of Brave Mystic Training consists of 4 gates. And these 4 gates were developed and inspired based on my 7 years of teaching and leading guided experiences through mystic wisdom through my work at the School of Imagination. So at this point, I've hosted multiple 99-day Neville-focused courses. I've also hosted a year-long course that had 4 major themes. And what I've learned from watching people move through these content arcs, I've learned that there really is a pattern of how people grow and develop and begin to express their next version, their upgraded expression of themselves. There's an arc. And so we designed the 4 core gates of Brave Mystic training to track this basic art of transformation. And here's the 4 gates. So the first gate is called loop closure. Essentially, loop closure allows us to recognize that whatever we're experiencing right now in our lives, it hasn't always been this way. There was a time before when we were experiencing something different in life. And there's a time coming next where we will also experience something different than what we're experiencing right now. So this is an opportunity to begin to recognize that life tends to move in loops. And once we start to activate our awareness of the loops, that's when we can begin to move into a spiral. Okay, so we talk about how the mystic path is a spiral path, rising in consciousness as those loops come around again. That's the first gate of the 4 gates of Brave Mystic training. The second gate is called field harmonization. Now, this is pretty straightforward, even though the name is a little fancy. It's pretty straightforward. This is the idea that we have the opportunity to unsubscribe from the scripts that no longer serve us, from narratives that we were handed. We don't have to be victims, fated to just live out outdated ways of thinking and speaking and being handed to us by people who didn't know any better themselves. Okay, we can set ourselves free of that. That's a core authorship skill, setting ourselves free of the scripts that no longer serve. In field harmonization, we have the opportunity to unsubscribe from false scripts, to reclaim our authorship, and to choose purposefully to create coherence. The third gate of Brave Mystic training is called timeline lock. And this is where we really zone into a clarity of our original signal. And we begin to recognize that there is something original that we've always been that just had a bunch of old scripts heaped on top of it. So together, supported by each other, and these daily exercise and 2 classes a week of focused investigation, we are able to begin to surface and connect to that pure, original broadcast of our source signal. We are able to choose consciously who we are going to be. And we begin to lock into our authored life. The fourth and final gate of this Brave Mystic training arc is called embodiment and radiance. And this is where we begin to talk about and activate, explore, and actively author into our experience our gifts, skills, talents, and abilities. The core theme of gate number 4 is that each of us arrives incarnated into a physical experience in this present lifetime with a soul blueprint that includes gifts, skills, talents, and abilities that really are our assets for this present lifetime. But in order to activate them and really welcome them in and allow them to enrich our experience, we have to choose to live as the author and become aware of these gifts, skills, talents, and abilities, and then begin to actively experience them by welcoming them in. So this is a series of practices. It's a focus. It's a window of focus within these 99 days. There are a couple of core practices that we teach and practice with, as though we're going to the gym every single day, but in this case, The gym is less about our biceps and more about the musculature of our consciousness. These core practices enable us to become rich authors of our life. Very strong mental fortitude, right? Shveta talks about it as being stable in our state resilience, right? How clearly and intentionally can we remain in our authored state no matter what happens in the world around us? These core practices enable us to do exactly that. And for these 99 days, we're practicing them every single day. First one, nervous system sovereignty. And you've probably heard me talk about this in Sunday Mystery School, visionary leadership calls. I think we've even talked about it in the Dream Logic Lucid Radio Hour. Nervous system sovereignty begins with presence and heart coherence. And together, presence and heart coherence creates this profound resilience that anchors the body as the first interface of authorship. There are many programs out there today, I'm sure thousands of them, that really focus on just mindset. They really keep it kind of ethereal in the realm of brain and thinking. And Brave Mystic training is an upgrade in that it really focuses on somatic intelligence, somatic meaning of the body's intelligence. And nervous system sovereignty is our way to interface with that default intelligence of the body. Second core practice, daily prompts and glyphs. The daily prompts, which are posted every single morning for that 99-day window in the private members, Brave Mystic area of our School of Imagination Discord server. Those daily prompts are short daily activations paired with a glyph drawing prompt that anchors presence and authorship into matter. Okay, so every day you're getting a prompt, something to consider, something to meditate on, something to contemplate, and sometimes something to speak about, a topic of conversation for the fellow brave mystics. In addition to that daily prompt, we're also prompting you to draw a symbol. This is a glyph. It's a visual representation of a higher dimensional consciousness idea. And by drawing this signal, drawing this symbol with full conscious presence and intention, think about what you're doing, right? You're taking an idea out of imagination, higher dimensional concept represented by a symbol, and now you are drawing it by hand using a pencil onto a piece of matter, which is your paper. This is altering physical reality using your mind. Okay, and is that not the essence of authorship? In this training, you practice doing exactly that every single day, and it's guided. And you're actually going to see an example of what the first cohort was all about with the daily glyphs coming up in just a bit. Third core practice, imagination exercises. Now, this is new for Cohort 2. For Cohort 2, we are offering 14 structured visualization practices. It's one per week. 99 days comes out to about 14 weeks. So each week, you're going to focus on one visualization exercise to really strengthen your ability to see clairvoyantly in the realm of imagination. These exercises are designed to awaken higher dimensions of consciousness, and they include guided imagery and creative sensing practices that will help you strengthen your authorship. The next core practice of Brave Mystic training is simulation mastery tools. Now, Shveta will speak a little bit about that a little bit later on, but sometime last year, Shveta started talking to me about some research that she was doing on how intelligence organizes itself. And she started to bring me some ideas about how us in human experience, we're living what could be described as a natural intelligence operating system. And so she began to use systems thinking lenses to decode what that means, what our natural intelligence operating system is, and to start to understand the physics of reality based on these higher order systems thinking principles. Now, this is a massive breakthrough in clarity. I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about that and share about what that really brings to the table. It's something I haven't seen anywhere else. It's truly leading edge in terms of helping mystics understand what is going on in their reality, how everything is themselves pushed out, and how not to just understand that, psychologically, but to also live it as an author and have tools for how to engage with the simulation of reality from that place of authorship. And finally, community witnessing. So we were very blessed in Cohort 1 to have one of the members of the community, Ariel, host what we call the Alchemy Lounge, which is a voice space, a voice lounge, prior to the weekly classes where mystics can gather and share whatever they're present to. And it ended up being one of my favorite features of the course. I was so grateful to have Ariel hold that beautiful space. And Ariel has agreed to come back and offer it again as part of the team of Brave Mystic training for cohort number 2. It's a huge value, an opportunity to speak to people who are holding a similar level of consciousness and really be seen and be witnessed in this very beautiful, judgment-free, trust and authenticity anchored space. We're also bringing hot seat coaching. Now, we don't really like the term hot seat because it implies pressure, but we're still calling it that, at least, in this Zoom conversation or this YouTube live stream, because we think everybody knows exactly what that means. Okay, so maybe it's the alchemy seat, maybe it's the transformation seat, but here's the bottom line. You have not only myself and Shveta as your guides and instructors for these 99 days, coaching you in a hot seat, but you also have this field of brave mystics globally who are also coaching you and helping you develop your authorship. It's an amazing opportunity. It's really unmatched in this space. And then, of course, the way that this cohort is designed, you have these peer mirrors that help you to reflect and strengthen each other's authorship. So a lot of that is through the structured exercises, the sacred circles of the Discord server. Okay, so final thing I want to say here before I welcome Shweta in and have her talk a little bit about simulation mastery and then bring up the graduates. I want to talk a little bit about the experience of transformation that Brave Mystic training represents. Okay, so essentially the whole training starts with a prompted focus on becoming aware of our scripts, our loops, and our patterns. Okay, so it's incredibly important to understand how we got to where we are. The identity that we've authored for ourselves that is creating the experience that we're having in everyday life. That's the beginning of transformation, becoming aware of where we are in the present tense. In the middle of the transformation of this experience, that's when we learn how to face contrast, how to learn discernment and transcend judgment. And what's the difference? Okay, these are focused skills of authorship. They're absolutely crucial to being a skillful author of your identity. And then finally, in that middle phase, we begin to learn how to choose our new stories and anchor those in. Later on in the transformation, we really begin to focus on signal clarity. Okay, this idea that, we're not becoming something new, we're clearing away the debris and we're tuning back into our original broadcast, that original soul signal that came to Earth in this incarnation. Truth is, there's nothing wrong with us. It's just the whole equation is a noise to signal ratio. And the purpose of this latter phase of transformation is to really clear away the noise and get very clear on the signal. This is also when we practice the bravery of saying no. The bravery that is required to say no. It's an essential part of authorship. And of course, we learn to embody our authentic power. And then finally, in the embodience and radiance gate, we learn to recognize our gifts, skills, talents, and abilities. Not just recognize, but begin to welcome and activate into our everyday experience our superpowers that we've had this entire time that may just have been clouded with some debris of our old scripts and loops. And this is when we have the opportunity also to celebrate the arc of transformation. So at this time, I would like to invite Shweta to come up and talk a little bit about simulation mastery. And then we're going to invite some graduates to share a little bit about their experience of Brave Mystic training. Go ahead, Shweta.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful background on everything. I thought that was great. I wanted to introduce simulation mastery as essentially the structure that I needed to create to survive understanding the world through Neville's lens. So fundamentally, I'm a Neville Goddard student. His ontology and the way that he sees the world is my framework time and time again. I mean, that's why I have one of these everywhere I go. It's the complete reader, and the lectures are always in the history of my browser. So what is this random simulation mastery thing? Neville had a complete system. Very true. Neville did have a complete system in terms of his 30 years of explaining the structure of who we are, how we're keyed low expressions of this absolute consciousness. And there was a part of me that either needed to update the language so that it fit my 2025 brain, 2025 level of systems thinking that we now see, like 2025 level concepts even of psychology. I mean, we've caught up in and spirituality. We've caught up in these other ways. So it was either about updating it or filling in the gaps. I'm not quite sure what the best explanation is, because I would ask myself, okay, I mean, we've all done this, after sort of the beginner's luck of finding Neville's teachings and being like, I manifested a free cup of coffee. This area of my life started to change. And oh my God, all this stuff is going on. There's this sometimes stagnancy, a plateau. You feel like you're brushing up against something. You feel like you're doing all the same techniques and applying all the same teachings in this area. You're bringing it to this area. And it's like a firewall. I think that's how it started for me. I'm like, that feels like a firewall. That feels like some kind of blockage. And I started to make sense of, okay, this reality, and I really did rely on Neville's explanation for a lot of this as a starting point, is cyclical. And if something is cyclical and something repeats itself, that means it has a structure. If it's something is spherical, that means it has a shape. And starting to make sense of that, and I added what I started studying, systems thinking, uh, added that, and I sort of started experimenting. That's what I do. I'm like an experimenter and researcher. Those are the roles I play. Started experimenting with this idea of input and outputs. Okay. So, I looked at like, let's say an AI tool like ChatGPT, and I was like, okay, what's going on there? We're putting an input in. It's going through the training data and the structure there and giving me an output. And I'm like, that's kind of what we are, right? We're going through these constant input output cycles. So I had this big idea that I experimenting with. I'm seeing, dividends in my reality. I'm seeing, oh, that changed. That structure changed for the better because I was able to apply systems thinking almost solution and approach. I brought it to Josiah. And just like we do all the time, we kind of went back and forth. We kind of wrestled with the idea and we started experimenting as well. I kind of worked with Josiah to kind of provide him with some of these cool tools or ways of thinking. And it was several months before we realized that what I had on my hands and what I'd been building for years, actually, but then it kind of like caught up steam here, was a way of looking at the world that took into account the different cyclical nature of reality and the various loops, input output loops that the world is that we experience. So the truth is that some of this will be better explained in the container where we got an hour and a half every week where we're going through this. It can feel complex, but once you get it, and I think the brave mystics can attest to that, once you kind of get some of the basic concepts, you start seeing, oh, that's a loop I'm on. And that's a firewall that I'm experiencing. So that's what I would say. I would say it's a language, a structure, of grounding and making sense of what can feel unknowable and confusing. And we take simple systems thinking principles like the path of least resistance, system inertia, building momentum. Um, we bring these concepts and we apply them to how we choose to interpret and process reality. So that's it at a loop because it kind of helps make sense of things like everyone is you pushed out. It makes sense of things of like why it feels like we're in this multi-leveled, multi-layered reality. Um, and so yeah, that's what I would say in a nutshell. Any thoughts on that? Was there any would you want to prompt me to sort of speak to any other part of this?
Yeah. So one of the things that I found really consciousness expanding and also kind of widen my horizons of possibility were some of these techno mystical tools that are very bespoke and custom just to me or custom just to each brave mystic. Can you speak a little bit about
Yes.
what that is?
Is it? Yes, I can. So first and foremost, no tool, no technique, nothing can work or is effective until your conscious awareness activates, um, allows it to have that power, and you assume the state. So I just want to make that loud and clear. And Neville had techniques and teachings so that you could kind of like tuck them throughout your day so that you could start remembering throughout your day. He would say, do revision at night every single night. He would say, when you're feeling kind of sleepy at nap time, just relax in your rocking chair and imagine. So and then he had various types, you could go backwards in time. So all that to say that all that to say that when I took this idea of systems thinking, but also honestly, simulation theory, which a lot of thinkers are starting to call this dream that we live in an actual simulation, meaning it behaves, acts, and responds in a way that seems built up, seems built up for specific rules and structures. So when I started taking simulation theory really seriously, I was like, there is a code behind all of this. There's a code behind every single thing that we go through. And I started to see it everywhere. So the tools come directly from simulation theory and understanding that perhaps the codes that we're playing out can be rewritten and experimenting. So um, the pseudocodes are essentially audio codes that you create at the right time. You're not doing this right off the bat. You're starting to build your understanding of who you are, what your structure is, and all these things. And you create this bespoke uh, code that is based on your diagnostic. So we actually do go through a diagnosis process of what in this life area is going on. And we create the code so that it can support you. And the reason this is important is now we all have one of these everywhere, right? And we have busy, noisy lives. We so much gets, crammed in a day. And there's so much noise. So this tool is actually kind of like a modern upgrade, a modern sort of tool that if you are, I don't know, in a social environment, you're in a business meeting, you are in a situation where you really need your wits about you, now you have a supportive tool that you can play in certain times in your life. And I noticed that it helped not just trigger manage, but reroute personal experiences. And so, yeah, it's an experimental tool. I'll tell you that this is the first cohort that we're experimenting with, and I'm learning every single day how all of this works. But it's incredibly promising, and I think it's been very, very helpful when life is lifing and you don't have even a couple minutes to reimagine with your eyes closed or something. You have an audio tool to support you. I'm going to say it's analogous to subliminals, but way upgraded and way more bespoke.
I think that really helps ground it there. Analogous to subliminals, but you know what's going into them because it's based on you and your authorship. It's a field. It's a way to encode a memory of your conscious imaginal intention into a tool to help it hold in the field. And again, this is it's part of the advanced aspect of the arc. So it's something we work our way towards in Brave Mystic training. Thank you for that intro, Shweta. Okay, so would you like to go ahead and move into the next segment
Absolutely.
where we can hear from some graduates?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. This is my most exciting part. I can't wait. So the way I want to do this is thank you so much for first start by thanking you so much for joining us and being open to sharing about how your experience was and your enthusiasm throughout this experience. Thank you so much for feeding us with that. But first, what I'll do, and I'll call each individual one of you. But the first question I have for all of you is, what brought you into Brave Mystic training? Like, what interested you in the program? And I'd love to hear from you. Let's start with you, Ariel. Is that okay? We'll start with Ariel
Yeah,
first.
definitely. Thank you. Thank you. And also thank you for that amazing intro. And that the intro helped me remember why I was drawn to Brave Mystic training in the first place. And for me, what drew me was just there felt like there was a safe space to explore the leading edge. So those times when I've noticed that, oh, I want to go a little bit deeper. And who do I talk to besides me and my journal, and besides um, seeming sometimes a little bit strange to my friends, you know? And so it was like, it seems like this is a safe space to explore rabbit trails that like bring more meanness alive and allow me to not be afraid to consider other concepts. And it felt like a way to explore Neville's teachings in a modern lens. And so that I would say that that's it. It felt like it wasn't like a dusty old book. It was inspired by that solid foundation. And even us as a cohort didn't know how far we could go. And that's how I feel about the School of
Mm.
Imagination, like a safe space to go beyond where no mystic has been before, essentially. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
fantastic. And I think we do that by being experimental. We're trying new things, we're applying different ways of being, we're engaging every day. We're like, did you try that? Oh my God, it worked here. Very cool. That makes perfect sense. So, the next person I want to hear from here about the same question, what brought you here, would be Sandy. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what brought you to Brave Mystic?
Okay. Um, so I had been practicing learning reality creation for quite a few years, and I had found myself kind of stuck in a Groundhog's Day. Um, where if you look at my life in 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, other than the fact that my kids were aging, I was living the exact same year over and over and over. And then I had also found myself where I had gotten to a point where I was living for movement, living for that, the birds before land. Um, and it had kind of been like if you're trying to manifest a duck and you see a picture of a duck and you're like, oh, it's coming, I see a picture of a duck. Or, you walk past a duck or someone says duck or whatever, but it's years later and you still don't have a duck. So I became like just constantly living for this birds before land and this movement, but not actually having anything. So when this kind of came up, I kind of saw it as if I put in this much energy and this much time and I really give it my all and nothing changes, then I'm going to go back to believing that there is this man besat in the sky, a sky daddy, if you will, and that sky daddy just does not favor me. And just accept that and just surrender to that sky daddy. And that's kind of where I was with it right before I joined.
Oh my God. Okay, can I say, no pun intended. Um, can I say that I know, oh, I know that feeling. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna give it my all. And I want to comment on this I've been there. Neville would say, if you even have that one like inkling of if this doesn't work, then there's that like little like stone in it, that's but I completely hear you, and that's a very raw, honest reading of the situation. The other thing about simulation mastery I wanted to pull in here is it kind of starts to explain a little bit about why you might see signs, why you might start to see signs. That's just the loop activating. That's just a little pieces of evidence. That is a completely different out picturing than the ultimate you want to be when you get there. So makes perfect sense. Thank you for sharing that. And the next person I want to ask that is Marcio. Marcio, can I get you to share a little bit about what interested you in this program?
Absolutely. Well, as you were talking, I was thinking back to quite a bit before Brave Mystic was, at least even in my awareness. I remember I was chatting with you, Shweta, um, and we were chatting about just what was going on in my life at that time. And I remember you asked me, do you feel like you're trying to figure this out? I remember that. And at the time, I don't know what I said at the time, but looking back, it's like, you know what? Yes, I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to, like, there's so many things that I didn't understand. Why is it working in this area that seems more benign, and other areas it's that are more important to me, they're not. I don't see any movement. I don't understand. I'm applying and doing this. I'm following Neville's teachings in this way and doing that. And again, it's all that loop that I wasn't seeing, and all that I guess you could call it that systems thinking lens that I hadn't picked up yet. So I was also thinking um the saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And the way I was led to Brave Mystic was I was already in Josiah's mastermind, and it was just kind of this inevitable, I don't know if a push is the right word, but it was, or maybe a guiding that when it was first brought up, it was like, I just have to be there. There's something about this that's bringing me to this. And the way that it ended up unfolding was way, or has been way more eye-opening, expanding, and liberating than I ever even dreamed.
Thank you, Marcio. Yes, figuring it out, and that's a state, when you're in that state of figuring out, and that can be useful to a certain degree. And then when we live in the end, we get the answer. That's my favorite thing to do, as I've shared with you, where I go to the end, I go, oh my God, I get it now. Like that feeling of relief, that aha moment. And so that makes sense. The figuring it out is a state. There's always more to figure out, and that serves a purpose. But then at some point, we have to kind of move to the end. So thank you. That makes perfect sense. So let's see, John, can I get you to speak a little bit about what brought you to Brave Mystic training?
Sure. Thank you, Shveta, Josiah. As you were sharing, I kind of zoomed back to a few days before the 99-day experience. And what was driving me was listening to a story Josiah shared on one of his readings, where Neville's partner, Neville's wife, she had a dream, and in her dream she saw two words. One was spend, one was invest, and she was looking at both of those words in a dictionary. I think she was possibly French by nature, or she just wanted to understand the English dictionary translation. And this got Neville thinking, and the kind of bottom line was that's what we do with our life. We can either spend our energy or we can invest. And I really got strong on the investment side. I found traffic jams became an investment. You can imagine all that imagination time. And so for so much of my life, since my 20s, I've been so curious about how things work. And what the light bulb that went on for me when this course was announced was the period of time, 99 days. Most investments may be like you read a book, you listen to a book in however long, you listen to a YouTube video, 30, 45 minutes, etc. But I thought, wow, that's a good period of time. Even if we look at seasons, it's a full season and a bit. So I thought, yeah, okay, there's something about that period of time that I'm going to gift my energy. I'm going to gift energy to me, input. And the other part of the light bulb was, what? I get to meet people that have kind of some similar interests, because sometimes my kids don't want to hear about Imagine the Best or Faith is Your Fortune. think from the wishful field, they've heard it so many times, Dad. But seriously, I fell in love with that aspect, that I can meet real time and maybe a few seconds delay on the Discord. But that was something I really needed. I enjoy the independent journey, lone warrior. God gave us our independence, and I'm grateful for that. But also, I love to be in the company of people who some ideas, some are slightly different, and I feel that we receive and hopefully give each other something along the way. So I'm grateful for all those gifts, the gifts that keep giving. So the period of time, Shveta, 99 days, I think is a valuable
That's
investment.
cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool. The 99 day I think is really fascinating because I looked into this and 99 days connotes a cycle, you know? And I know that one full cycle is kind of like a season of something. It's like a season where you go through something fully and you can kind of close the loop, the bigger loop with someone. So I fully hear you. I think that's why it has some kind of like intelligence within it, that 99 days. You have some time to integrate. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And then Orlena, can I hear from you as to what brought you to Brave Mystic training?
Right. So um, May 5th, actually, 2024, that's when Sunday Mystery School started. And that's when I first met Josiah and loved his energy about Neville. And then it was only natural to, you know, get into Brave Mystic training because I had and learned and so much information, valuable information from Sunday Mystery School. So it was just a natural transition to, get into that. And then when I started to realize, I was just like, okay, in Sunday Mystery School, I was believing, but with Brave Mystic training, I started to know. And I think that was the main difference, was that you start to know, like, the information that Neville is giving and what you are giving as far as Josiah, and what what Shweta, what you do in everything. And that is a main distinction, is that I got a lot of knowing and I planted my flag with Brave Mystic training. And if you want to get to that level of knowing, because there's a difference, right? But believing is, I hope, I think, right? But knowing is I am. And that is the main distinction. And so if you want to get to that level, yeah, I definitely recommend you being in Brave Mystic training, because it gets you to that knowing level.
Thank you, Orlena. Yes, I totally see that distinction. It's funny how subtle the distinctions are, where you're like, you feel the swell and it might feel positive. That could just be hope. And hope, again, serves a purpose, but we have to shift into that living in the end. And it's a daily reminder, which is why sometimes when I leave containers like this, I like, when I leave a program like this, there's like a sadness because I'm like, I had that structure that was keeping me updated. But anyway, I thank you for sharing. Sandy, I was curious because, and I someone else asked this in the YouTube chat. What now? Thank you for sharing why it is that you were curious about Brave Mistake training. It sounded like it was because there was this confusion and the Sky Daddy question. You put it in a really interesting way. So I was curious if you would say now that you found more of what you're looking for. Like, did Brave Mystic training kind of ease that frustration, ease that question? Did it give you more to work with? Could you share a little bit about that?
So when we actually got into Brave Mystic training, I was not expecting what happened. So I'm just gonna be honest. Like, Brave Mystic training was like about 30 years of therapy and self-help. in a very short amount of time, but in a very productive way. So the pace was perfect. So no one got caught in these, healing loops that people can tend to get caught into, where it's like they're on this healing journey of 30 years. It was kind of like we went in, we found the weeds, we pulled them up, we tilled the soil, we planted this, and it was like boom, 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 boom. And that was just perfect for me because there was like, you didn't get lost in the sauce, is basically how it was. Um, Absolutely, I feel like I got those answers, and I got those things cleared up. For the most part, like, I know who I was then. I know why I was her. I have accepted her, and now I know that I get to decide who I am every single day that I wake up. I get to decide who I am now. And whenever I slip into unconsciousness, I'm very, very capable of waking myself up much quicker. And that's the nervous system sovereignty, 100% that we learned. By far, the most helpful skill for me was the nervous system sovereignty. So, yeah.
It's incredible. Thank you for sharing. And I will give you who are listening a heads up before the end of the call, if we have time, and I think we will. I'll walk you through a practice of nervous system sovereignty, a little bit of a sneak peek of what we will teach in the program. So thank you for sharing that so heartfelt. And I'm sure a lot of the people that are listening can kind of relate and are inspired. So I kind of had a second round of questions, and I will also let, if anyone's on YouTube, if anyone has questions, we can kind of like play around with that. But I was curious from the group, what was one of the biggest surprises when you were inside the program? And I'll start with you, Sandy, because you said you weren't expecting what you saw. So maybe you can speak to that. What surprised you most once you were inside the program?
Okay. I was not I was not prepared to get to know myself the way that I did. Um, I realized that I think I've spent the better part of 40 years running away from myself. And I think in this program, I actually met myself and was kind of like, oh, wow, she's pretty cool. I actually like her. I want to be her. I don't want to run away from her anymore. I actually want to be her.
Oh wow, you like brought tears into my eyes. I know what you mean. Thank you. That's so sweet. Wow.
And I
I
see you
see what you mean.
smiling, Marcio. I see Marcio smiling. He's a big part of that. Like just the compassion that, if we showed up strung out or crazy or sad or confused or lost or whatever, Marcio especially is one person in there that truly taught me how to have compassion for myself and who I am.
Wow. That is so cool. Like that's so cool. I'm glad to hear that a big significant part of this was the person you met, like a person that you met in the program, because like you can see how the morphic field pulled him in. So actually that's a good segue, Marcio. Is there anything that surprised you once you were inside Brave Mystic?
Well, yes, definitely, very much. Um, Two things, actually, I would say. First of all, the practical application of the simulation theory embodied in the pseudocodes, basically. I was not expecting that. I remember I told you that before. Because many times on this journey, we've heard the, realities of simulation concept, and it stays very conceptual. It just stays up here. But when in Brave Mystic training, Shveta, you brought this to or brought this in a language that grounded it more, that made it like actually make sense. And then, oh, we're not just going to keep this as a theory and a concept. This is actually what we're doing physically with the pseudocodes. So that kind of blew my mind in that sense. But also like on a spiritual level and on the authorship side, which they both go hand in hand. They're not really separate, but um, that conscious decision along with the daily prompts that that really ground you through nervous system sovereignty into a focused path where many times on this journey we're kind of spinning our wheels and we're kind of, going wherever we think we need to go. And with the guided prompts, along with the nervous system sovereignty, it just focuses everything towards a more compassionate, a more true, and a more what's the word? Well, I'll just say focused again. A more focused way of really embodying the person that you want to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's different levels of surprise. I mean, we're talking about, concepts maybe you haven't heard before or you've heard before, and then I'm kind of putting a different depth to it or adding more color to it. So that makes perfect sense. And I learned a lot from the first cohort of how to kind of share these concepts and so yeah. Or Lena, can I get you to speak a little bit about what surprised you? Anything specific that surprised you about the program? You're muted.
So I have to say that it was a lot of like emotional freedom that I got. I stopped panicking when things were, a little unstable, in my life. And I really, really calmed down, like, okay, this is a part of like the wave of life, and the daily prompts really helped me to stabilize, that those parts of your life that's, like a roller coaster. And so I would say the consistency of, doing the prompts every single day, the glimpse, okay, really, really helped. And, I've gotten better with my drawings. I was
No,
so
show us,
afraid.
show us a couple.
Oh, yes, yeah. I was so afraid, right, oh gosh, you could
That's
barely
so
see them.
interesting.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, we can
But
see it. We can see it. Yeah.
it's like I was so afraid to like make a mistake with the glimpse, right? You know what I mean? Because I'm always trying to be perfect and everything and like do things right. And then after a while, I'm just like, I'm an expert at drawing. And I felt
Yeah.
so comfortable to like make the mistakes, right? And do it over. And that's the beautiful thing about this program. It's like, yeah, mistakes, it's gonna happen, but it's okay. Forgive yourself and move on. And I that's what I learned so much about, life and this program and just everything about it. It's like that's how it goes. And so if you want to learn that, I mean, if you want
It's
to
incredible.
make a
Yeah.
drawing and do it over,
No, that makes
it's
sense.
okay. Like
Yeah.
do this program. Like I was so like I had a thing about my speech, and now I'm just like I just make the mistakes and just let it go, just it's okay. That's what this program does.
That's incredible. And that makes sense. When I started learning about imagination creating reality, I was thinking of this idea of, okay, let's say there's a perfect circle. Let's say, close your eyes, you imagine a perfect circle. You can kind of imagine the perfection of a circle. You can kind of see
Right.
it there. Take a pencil and you draw it, right? That's us creating that. So we have
Exactly.
this conception of it, that's us creating it. It might, unless you master it, unless you have some artistic, mastery and you practice, it might not look like what's in here, but we show up every day, we clarify, we increase the signal, reduce the noise. And I think
Yeah.
it's interesting that was a lesson that the glyphs got for you, because it
Yes.
had the glyphs had many different layers, but sometimes like the simplest takeaway of, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have such a ripple effect. which is
Exactly.
super cool. And I think these little simple things that we do, because some of the practices that we had range in complexity. Some of them were, okay, draw this complex drawing with hand and paper. Some of
Yeah.
them were work with an AI tool to go back and forth and refine what you're thinking, ask it to question you, you question it back. Within a safe AI, with safe AI
Mm-hmm.
standards. But there were so many different like practices that had different levels of complexity. And I just want to say I really appreciate all of you, and you, Orlena, especially, that you threw yourself in it at all levels. Yes, we were talking about drawing. Next second we're talking about doing a daily exercise. You always showed up. So I really and creating a code, all that stuff. So thank you for that. And that actually brings me to the next person I wanted to ask about, what is Ariel, because Ariel too
Oh
really
my
threw
goodness.
herself in this and was such a
Yes.
value add for everyone here. So Ariel, do you mind unmuting and sharing a little bit about what surprised you in the training?
Ooh, I love that question. I would say the fact that there was space to be all of me while learning. And I was not expecting that. And I was not expecting the energy of collaboration that I felt with all the other beings in the cohort. And this feeling of like, oh, the world feels like a more friendlier place, knowing there are these beings on the same journey. And I think like I'm somebody who like I always want to dig deeper and define everything for myself and like just kind of like, what system can I create to like make this come alive for my own being so that I understand it, and to have a safe space to do that while also exploring like elevated language was just amazing. I felt like I didn't have to like dilute or mute any part of my being. And that was extremely important to me. And just knowing that like every day there was like a safe space to be, whether it was in a sacred circle or just in the daily prompts. It just there was this feeling of like you're not alone. You're not alone anymore. Here are the
And
beings.
up,
Yeah.
you showing up like specifically as you was like untold blessings, like completely blew me out of the water of like how everyone's showing up in their flavor, and especially you, honestly, in the way that you held space for all of us so many times in so many ways. Like it's wild how that you needed permission to do that, but then that enabled so much. Like it's really fantastic and cool. So that makes sense. And I think the surprises that you guys shared so far, and I want to hear from John as well, seem they're in range. There's a range of surprises that people had about the program, and really cool. So, John, can I ask you to unmute and share a little bit about what surprised you once you joined the program?
So, yeah, one surprise, which was the volume. The volume of information surprised me again and again and again. Not so much at it wasn't too much. There were departments, but I thought, wow, how are they doing so much in what could be limited time? So I was kind of grateful for the kind of the wealth of information and the structure. And my desires were like the first coffee of the day, the starting point, and then the second coffee of the day was Discord and what's going on. And so the wealth of information was a big plus for me. It's like getting lost in a beautiful library. There's good information everywhere. Another surprise was the structure reflected in other aspects of my life where I was challenging myself or doing things. I would go somewhere. It was a week activity, personal kind of health, let's say, related health. And I knew the outcome at the beginning of the week. And I told the person who was helping me, I just knew it. I just knew that where I'd be afterwards. And, so it was a little bit like having a clock at 7:59, 11, sorry, 11:59 in the rest of our life, and then the clock goes to 12. And it's just that little switch of clarity, but it makes a big difference. I really thought more about like unlocking a safe, where if you get it, you get the tick, and then you open the safe and you can reveal, whatever your desire is. So on the surprise side was, the wealth, the value of that information, whether it's Ariel's responses, kind responses to all of us, or a bit of information that's going to help. And it reflected in the rest of my life. And, I just love the organization side. No stone left unturned. It kind of literally everything is catered for from beginning to end.
Yeah, that's a great point. Looking back, Josiah and I were like, wow, we really gave a lot. We shared a lot. We shared a lot of concepts from morphic fields to fascia science to simulation mastery concepts to systems thinking lens to history about Neville. Like we put through a lot in, and that's because we'd been building it up and we knew it to like the back of our hand, and we knew that that's what led us to the where we are now is sort of integrating and understanding this level of info, but also because we, like you said, didn't want to leave any stone unturned. That's just how my brain is. Like that's just how we are. When we create a program, when I bring ideas to Josiah or Josiah wants to pitch something to me, it's like this, like I feel like a hoarder of information with my like squirrel nuts, and I'm like looking through and I'm like, no, all of this needs to be there and I need to save it for my people. So anyway, that's how I perceive it anyway. Super cool. Thank you for sharing. And I have to say that something I want to bring up and is that most of the people that you hear on the screen are coming back for cohort 2. Like how exciting is that? So once you join, the majority of people you're seeing on the screen here today will be part of the program as well. And we're going to have also broader groups. So once you exit a cohort, you still have a connection with us. You still have a connection with this community, and you can see how much the value of the community has played. Yes, we're, sharing the best, our knowledge to the best of our abilities with the most earnest desire that we have. And the community that comes around that ends up being a morphic field of its own, ends up being beneficial on its own, like and something that brought so much value even beyond, like the curriculum. So that's super cool. And so awesome. Now, I was curious if we could start sharing a little about and I want you to think of it like, because I know it's putting a little bit on the spot here, but what would you find was the hardest moment? Because any transformation, we talked about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey a little bit in the program, and that was actually a foundational part of authorship. Stories require this like hero's journey and transformation. What came up for you as one of the harder parts of it that you were like, this is something I need to transform here and transmute? Can I start with you, Ariel, to share?
Yeah, thank you. I think what was hard for me was noticing how powerful some of my firewalls were. And I felt like sometimes the prompts just were calling me out, like I couldn't hide. And which is good, but it was also hard to feel like, okay, so I've done some work in the past exploring different teachers, Neville Goddard, Abraham Hicks, and so forth. And just being like, oh, wow, if I'm actually honest, there are loops that keep playing and firewalls that I keep bumping into. And that invitation to be honest in every day through the prompts, that wasn't easy. And it made me just learn to become more comfortable with the unknown. Like in terms of the whole course in general, what my main takeaway is, I feel my fascia is more comfortable with the unknown. Like it can trust that the tools are there and that it's okay. Like accepting myself in that moment where I'm like, I don't know what to share in this prompt. I feel like there's a surface level response, and that's not why I'm here. And there's
That
also
makes
the
sense.
truth,
Yeah.
yeah, that I can just sit with it for a moment and be honest and just speak out, I'm not sure. and then watch the
Hmm.
answer reveal itself as the day goes on, for example, or the next day. So learning when to pause and accept the stuckness and bringing neutrality to the stuckness is what the language really helps to do. It's just be like, okay, this is not
Hmm.
a test or it's not an indicator of who I am. It's just part of the system.
Yes. I need, you're speaking to something that I think we all need is when you're in the story, in the plot line, looking around you, and something's like rewrite, rewrite this, maybe choose another thing. You're like, but like, look at how real this is. And it feels so overwhelming. And then we need something to detach, basically. You're in the story, you're so swept up in it. We need something to detach. Systems thinking and simulation mastery absolutely provide that. It can be very confronting though. Like just sitting with something instead of running away and abandoning yourself, instead of just saying, "Oh, look at these people. They're the ones in the wrong, not me." Instead of taking responsibility for your state. That's the hard work, right? And that hard work is not glamorous and it can't be solved with intellectualizing something. And even when you have all the answers, sometimes it doesn't feel good right away. So I want to commend you for being because you were showed up every single day, even with the confronting prompts. That happened. That confrontation has absolutely taken me off the path before. And so anytime we can allow something to just sit within and we realize how powerful we are, and we can sit and dissolve that. So that's fantastic. Okay. May I go to you, Sandy? Is there anything, and I know you kind of spoke to this a little, but what did you find like one of the hardest moments in the program?
Um, so I'll do kind of a fun one, but a serious one. On the serious side, it was really, truly, finally understanding the concept of everyone is you pushed out. Like I now know what that means. And it was to a point where it was like, I can spend 10 years of my life saying, no one sees me, no one sees me, no one sees me. But I also spent 10 years hiding under the bed with a weighted blanket over my head saying, oh my God, I hope no one sees me. So it was truly understanding what everyone is you pushed out truly means. That was scary because when I did speaking from a systems lens, when we did the diagnostics, and it was kind of like, oh, snap, like, oh, okay, I see now. I got that. Everyone is me pushed out. Okay, here we are. Um, and then on the fun side, to be honest with you, is learning that power. Because there have been a lot of times through this process where I have kind of looked around and been like, ooh, is this happening? Like this is happening. Like things are happening. And it's almost like an uncomfortability at first when things start to happen, that you're not really ready for. So yeah, that can be a little scary.
That is very scary. Once it's like, let's say you practice to get the role at the local theater. You wanted it, you auditioned for it, you did it, and then it's the day of, you have to perform. It's scary, and there's a part of us that's like, did I really want this? Or there can be. So absolutely. And then, the unloading of the being aware of, okay, I said I wanted this, but how have I been showing up, and what other firewalls have actually hijacked that desire and sort of distorted it? So very relatable and honest, so thank you. So let's see. Oh, did you say you had a humorous one?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just the in terms of the systems thinking, how those words showed up, so it's like, um, you want to, let's just say, for instance, you want to be a millionaire, but you're terrified to invest $1. So that inertia, and just as you do the diagnostics, it got to a point where some of these diagnostics were funny. Like they were just
Oh,
funny because it's
yeah.
just like, oh, duh, you know?
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, there's all these philosophers that talk about how this is like a divine comedy or something. Because yeah, like after a while, you're like,
Yeah.
this is what it was. This is what it was all about. So anyway, yeah, absolutely. It can be hard, and then you're like, once the pressure is gone, it can be almost funny. Okay. Orlena, is there anything coming up for you that you're like, you know what, that was harder than I expected?
Yes. So I was realizing that I was having like worth issues, and I had to dissolve all of that. and it's self-worth issues, and it crept on me, and the prompts and everything was helping me to dissolve all of those, self-worth issues that I was, going through. And I didn't really realize it until, later on. And, I ended up, dissolving them all. So yeah, that was really hard, just knowing that I even had them to begin with. I had them when I was younger. Everyone usually has them when they're younger, but when you're, in your 40s, you just kind of
Yeah.
don't realize that, yeah, you still have those kind of issues, so yeah.
Yeah, they don't just go away. They say time heals all wounds. I think time does something. But if something exists in the programming, it's going to express itself out. You have to debug. We have
Exactly.
to diagnose, and we have to rewrite. So that
Right.
makes sense. And Marcio, is anything coming up for you in terms of what you found hard in the program?
Yeah, pretty much along the same lines. Being able to, I would say, honestly and compassionately accept things that are you're running in the background, the loops the loops and firewalls specifically that we many times know are there, but just refuse to accept because it's hard to look at. And when every day there's a prompt created that's just so meticulously crafted that the question just burns in the back of your mind like, okay, this is something that you need to look at. And maybe you don't know the answer right now. Maybe you won't know it later today. Maybe you won't know tomorrow, but it's there. And it really starts to open your awareness towards things like, I'm just not willing to accept something. And just that is enough to, going to Neville's no one to change but self. It really, really makes you look at yourself and basically the only thing you can change. So with that, it can be hard because a high self-concept includes all the things that you previously didn't like. And maybe you still won't like them very much, but you can look at it in a different way and accept it and be like, you know what, this is fine. And as Sandy was saying, I love to be this person. And I am so excited to make it what I choose to make it, to be me as the author, me in that seat and consciously choosing my path and my perspective.
Yeah, I in the lucid dreaming radio hour on Friday, I was explaining how I had to be honest that I was really excited about lucid dreaming techniques, but I needed to be honest that it's extraordinarily rare for people to become not because it's not possible. It's very possible because the only skill for lucid dreaming is remembering. That's the only real skill for lucid dreaming is to remember. But people, so we got remembering, and then there's authoring. But even the remembering part in lucid dreaming is hard for lucid dreamers. I see that as true for conscious creators as well, in a different way, in a different level. That this is hard to look around you and then put squarely the responsibility on yourself and your state is such a challenge. And no matter how you slice or dice it, that's the pearl of great price. That's why it's a great price. And that's why honestly, um, we put this program together because my solo adventures, while they took me all kinds of different places, I needed that container to come back to realize everyone's seeing this, right? And encourage each other on that because it is a challenge and it is hard and it's wild though, because I hear a couple of you saying that the prompts were so laid out to what you were going through in your real life. And that happens all the time. That it's like this like alignment of what's needed. And I also think it's because you're in a cycle. And so once you start something, a similar set of cyclical things can happen. So that makes sense. Thank you, Marcia, for sharing. I will see. Okay. John, is there anything you would like to speak to about what you found hard in the program?
Yeah, what I found was I actually found on one side keeping our eye on the prize, whether it's health related, relationships, whatever, living in the end state, the wish fulfilled, the outcome. What I found was even when Sandy mentioned, the world is you pushed out, that when I heard about that, that kind of was a bit of a shock to me. Oh, sugar. But what I noticed through this 99-day is that a lot of the rough edges in whether it's relationships, other situations, there was a softening. So I found that I was, attuned to the wish fulfilled, the state, the new state. I was confident of that reality. I knew, I trust what I hear. And so the fear side, or it wasn't really so relevant, except maybe to open my eyes to something, just like a toddler. There's no real fear; it's just a shadow, and just work with it. With all the tools that are available. So I would say that my experience was kind of an easy ride. Going into a water chute, just go into the top, and it'll take you all the way into the water, and you can splash around, laugh, enjoy the journey, laugh while you're excited, and yeah, and I kind of, at the beginning of the 99, I just already said to myself, wow, I don't know what to expect, but it's gonna be, please God, but it's gonna be good, and imagine the best. I think that's the good advice that comes from nearly everybody that I've listened to, and read the notes on the Discord. So yeah, it's going to be good.
You brought a ton of wisdom and experience, like an experiential learning, I noticed, to what you were speaking to, and this like positivity. And it felt, I don't know, hearing about your stories with your sons and stuff, it was really lovely to have you there. And I know what you mean, that sometimes it can feel like hard to buy the premise of something, and then once you buy the premise, it's just like allow everything. So I think that's super cool. Okay. Now I think I have like one final question, and I'll allow you to have whatever comments you want to share as well to the group. But let me start with Ariel here. What would you say you would share if you could share like one takeaway you think that anyone, yeah, one takeaway that you think anyone that might be interested in this should know? Like let's say someone's on the fence or they're wondering, is this right for them? What would be one takeaway that you might share, or something you might share to them to know if this is right for them?
I love this question. I would say if something in you is feeling a sparkle and a sense of like, this is the next logical step, the next logical step, or also this feeling of like, I'm ready, or feeling like I know and I want to feel more of the magic in my everyday life. I would say that that's a huge one. That's what the experience of the 99 days gifted to me was there was a sense of I felt like there's a lot of innovation within the program. And so to me that represented a blank canvas, not necessarily knowing how I would grow and glow. And then towards the end, I noticed just witnessing so many synchronicities between members of the cohort and in my own life that made me feel just really connected and back to being in my meanness. And yeah, so I'd say anybody who's wanting to embody and experience more of the real self as a norm in the day to day, and this is for you. It's
I
tough to
like
put into
it.
the
Trust the
it's tough to put
sparkle.
into
Trust the
words.
sparkle.
Yeah,
Well,
but the
yeah, it is tough to
fascia.
put it to words. Yes, that's true. Well, we start building some words. Now fascia, so we can start to like fill that. But yeah, trust the sparkle within. Trust that little inkling in the heart where the wisdom stored there. Absolutely. Love that. Okay. Now can I go to you, Sandy? Is there any takeaway that you could share with anyone who might be interested in joining us for the next cohort?
I guess to use another Neville term, which it's kind of funny because I'm not really a major Neville, like I've read it, I know it, all that kind of stuff, but I'm not like a die hard like a lot of, people in the group are. But to use another Neville term, I finally understand the wish fulfilled. Never understood that before. Heard it 500 million times. Oh, you got to be in the wish fulfilled. And it's like, okay, but how? What are you talking about? I can honestly say that now I am in it so much and so consistently that when reality shows me otherwise, I'm kind of like, wait, what now? That's not that's not my life. That's not what's going on. And that dissonance is very, very easy to clear up and to get myself back. So I think what I would say is if you feel it, that you know you want to do it, what is your hesitation? Your hesitation is probably the reason that you need to be in it.
That makes sense. And again, subtlety of words, right? There's a hesitation where you're like, I know I want to do this, but am I good enough? Is this actually right? Can I actually step into this? That's the hesitation. When you know that is not right for me, that feels a little different, but I know what you're getting at, and I appreciate I appreciate that. That makes perfect sense. Okay. Now, Marcio, may I ask you, like, is there anything you would want to share to someone so that they could, if they were interested in joining the program?
Yes. Well, very similar to what's been said. If there is that calling, there's just this something within that says, I feel like this might be it. You may doubt, you may, question, just go for it, because that's part of what it truly means to be brave. When you feel something there, and it's going to be soft, it's going to be gentle, it's not going to, yank you out of your seat. But if you feel you need to step up and even feel a little bit of anxiousness or fear about it, that's not a bad thing. That just means you're probably on the threshold of something incredible. So yeah, just don't think about it too much. Feel into it and go for it.
Thank you. That's wonderful and nice and clear. John, is there anything you would want to share with those that are thinking about potentially joining the program?
Sure. Yeah. So for everyone who's already said yes, I would like to be part of the new experience or this 99-day experience, then sow a seed now. 1, 2, 3 things that you wish to have as part of your journey, and enjoy it. Those of us that I remember having a question. So if there's 1 or 2 still have a question, I remember asking Josiah a question, and he gave me a response, and I felt better after I heard his response and said, okay, I'm in. So if you still have a question, then I would, like I had, when I started before, then I would invite you just to ask the question, and you'll get clarity there as well.
That's actually a great point. I always tell anyone that was in the program that I like friction, and I like when people ask the question so we can get clear on something. And if you realize, you know what, that's not my path right now, that's fine. But at least now you know, okay, this is what I was confused about, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. And I trust actually that we've answered several today from real people that were in the program. So that's awesome. And I think we didn't yet hear from you on this, and I really want to, Orlena. Is there anything you would want to share specifically to those that might be on the fence and are interested in the program?
If you're on the fence, definitely join. But in all seriousness, the community support that you get is like unbelievable, and so if you're on the fence and you feel like you're alone, you're going to be alone on whatever you're dealing with or whatever, you're really not. I mean, there were several moments, to where I was like, oh gosh, where I reached out to, the fellow brave mystics, and they were so there for me, and so if you're doubting that, you're gonna be alone in any kind of way with whatever, Josiah, Shveta, all of us, we're there for you. And I think that's what I gained the most, is the community support. We all helped one another, and we were loving, and we were just so there. Yeah.
That's actually true. That you reminded me of some of the beautiful combos that we'd had, because we have both the space to get nitty-gritty, detailed,
Exactly.
intellectual, really sort of do the work, and then we had the space before those spaces to kind of let it all hang out if we wanted to
Exactly.
get kind of ugly with it, and then have someone respond in a way that brings you back to grace. I have to say, one thing I notice about spaces like this is that
Yeah.
your friends and family, they love you and they know you and they're embedded, but that they play a special role, and sometimes they keep you in that state because they're part of the
Mhm.
storyline, they're part of the plot, and they're part of an input output loop of reactions that can be hard to create from, try to create a
Mhm.
new reaction and stuff. And so the fact that we had the space of people that held the line, knew the boundary, and weren't trying to bait you back into the old story, like, that's already fantastic. And it wasn't always about coaching, although that's a part of it. It was about hearing and witnessing.
Yeah.
I've always craved that. I've even with my friends, and I the more they can witness that, it's not about just hanging out. It's about witnessing who I am. And so
Yeah.
that can feel a little deep for the average person that just wants to go to the baseball game or something. So it's nice to have this space to connect with that. Awesome. So I have some kind of like specific questions, because I've had various conversations with some of you, where, and I thought this might be neat for people in the audience if they want to get kind of specific. Let me start with you, Sandy. Is there one specific example of how, like, the tools that we talked about? So we're talking about the pseudocodes, but also other things. Any other takeaways that have addressed any specific situations in like the real world? Is there anything that you can think of?
I can give you it's kind of, I know we don't talk about big or small, but it is kind of small, but it is very laser specific. One of my biggest diagnostics through every single diagnostic that I have done is inertia, 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 inertia. So I get frozen. I just freeze. And I've really been wanting to start investing, like learning all of this kind of stuff, and just getting into it. So I had come up with this dollar amount that I thought would be a good amount that I wanted to start investing on a monthly basis. And it's not really there. So what I did was I used all of the tools, used the pseudocodes, used everything, not for that specific dollar amount. What I did was with the theme of abundance overflow. That's what I focused on, was just, my bills are paid, this is done, I have enough, everything's good, but I want an overflow so that I can have, I guess fun money, like play money. I want to start learning this kind of stuff. And it was a very specific amount, but I did all the codes with abundance overflow. And this actually just happened yesterday. Yesterday, I got word that I got a raise, and the raise is the exact to the penny. Like I have screenshots. Like I have I like evidence. So I have screenshots that it is to the penny the exact dollar amount that I wanted to increase my salary by, so that now I can start. Now Josiah has to teach me everything because now I have the money to do it.
I love the to the penny manifestations, because what they really do is give you a little bone to that conscious mind that's like a little bunny rabbit and needs to know, wait, what is it? What is it? Is it actually true? So the monkey mind. So I love that. I love that. And I thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. And I know you had several others, but when you join, when if the people that are listening are on the fence, we're gonna get Sandy to be able to share more, and other people that, and you're gonna have your own stories. So thank you. Thank you so much. So Ariel, I think that you also had some things that we've talked about where you have some specific kind of like wins from using the tools. Would you like to share?
Yeah, thanks for that invitation. And thank you to everybody watching for asking these beautiful questions. I have a few. I would say all this is practical. and I could notice the glows gradually in my everyday life. One is relative to travel. I'm somebody who, uh, when I'm out and about in the world on my way home, I usually am dysregulated on the way home because I'm like, I just want to be home already. And it's just an uncomfortable experience. And I've noticed that having the techno-mystical tools as part of this intention that I set before I travel, these tools that I honed and we all honed through the Cohort 1 has just made the travel experience amazing. Like a couple days ago, I was on a return trip that usually I'm like, miserable at the end and I'm messaging my friends and they're like, what's happening? And I was so happy. There was just this nervous system sovereignty. I was very still. I had to wait an hour for something. And in the past, I would have just been like, no, I'm not waiting. I'm going to get the Uber. Don't care how much it costs. I just waited. And having this tool that I could just like play on my phone, that was an intention I'd set the day before, was just incredible. And I feel like it adds to that whole like the world is a friendly place and all I can do is take care of my own state. Another huge thing that's shifted since Cohort 1 has been the amount of overflow energy that I have. And I think comes from prioritizing nervous system sovereignty when I wake up and at different points throughout the day. And also in like speaking my truth authentically, no matter how I'm feeling. That means that I'm not pretending to be okay when I'm not, whether it's at work or at home or in this community, showing up as I am. And in terms of that overflow energy, it's enabled me to, I spend less time on Netflix, less time on Reddit, and I'm working on my own creative projects. And the amount of, like, I'm like, oh, I don't even want to sleep. I have that level of excitement. And so as somebody who used to like, okay, I was watching soap operas when he started Cohort 1, and I have not watched that in a while. So that's huge. And another one
Oh,
is
that's
also
so
celebration.
cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Speaking,
Yeah.
thank you. Speaking to celebration, towards the end of the cohort, I noticed that I was more comfortable being seen in my architecture of wholeness, in my messy state, less overthinking about did I do this right or did I do this wrong? And then I had my birthday celebration, I think it was like a few days before or after we ended. And I had no idea how I was going to celebrate. And the way I celebrated ended up being as a result of learning about my gifts, skills, talents, and abilities. Like I essentially had this virtual qigong party with friends who have never met each other, and it's been many years since I've been like, I want the people in my life to all meet one another, and it ended up just being this magical healing experience that then birthed like this other like creative project that I'm working on, and it's so things just tie together, and I think just the practice of showing up daily and fully and dissolving a few firewalls, speaking the truth, um, whatever the truth is, and not trying to be a perfect being, not trying to be a manifest or anything like that, just trying to be the real self, just seeps into
Mhm.
every single area of life. And just wanted to share that. So thank you for the space.
It's
Yeah.
so fascinating to see when our natural reactions and desires, I'm not going to call them desires, I'm going to call them impulses. um Kind of like an offshoot of a desire, the impulses change. Like instead of like tuning into Bravo or soap operas, we're like, no, actually, you know what, I want to be okay with my mind just being at peace right now. Instead of getting stressed and being like, I can't deal with this traffic, like, or I can't deal with this commute, you take it as an opportunity, as John said, to invest. Traffic is a really good opportunity to invest, and you take this a sort of, it makes life so much more worth living. And honestly, that's what I see as a takeaway, is that every moment of life doesn't feel like we're fighting it. We're managing it. We're deciding every moment of our life can be an investment of our thoughts, like a celebration. And that's not every day, every single moment, but that soothes you. Once it's not about getting, if you were dysregulated on a daily basis trying to get from point A to point B, and now you have a tool that calms that, that's a huge life change, life improvement. So I think it's really cool that you're noticing that, and noticing what also how your impulses change. Just saying that because that absolutely happened to me. Some of the things that I would eat before, not to mention drink before, watch, absorb. That feels so wrong to me. And as Neville said, your mark of a state change is how you react to the world around you. And if you don't have that same impulsive reactions, that says a lot about your transformation. So that's awesome. Thank you. Is there anybody else? I want to give anyone else a chance to share something specific. You can feel free to unmute yourself. I'm happy to. No, you're good. Everyone's good because everyone feels complete.
I'd like to add something.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure. Well, for me, this is pretty, for me, it's a pretty big deal because, and I'm sure for many people out there too, many times when you're manifesting something or focusing on manifesting something, not very, you're not very focused on yourself or very compassionate with yourself in the process, and very focused on the thing or whatever it is. So, something that definitely changed for me is that, the way that I see my emotions and the way that I see my thoughts and everything now, it's so much lighter, it's so much more free, where you can be okay with just, okay, I'm going through whatever this is now. I'm feeling, I don't know, let's say sad about a certain life area. You know what? That's okay. I can feel sad about it, and I can love myself through that maybe uncomfortable feeling, and give it a new meaning. So specifically, it's something that's very powerful, especially if you're, maybe dealing with a relationship area, something like that, that's very emotionally charged. And you can feel whatever's going on there, and like truly look at it, and love that, and give it a hug in a metaphorical sense, or even in a like a real sense. You can do that, and really, it really helps enormously. Like, it always brings me back to that, when Neville talks about the dream about the monster, and the more he fought the monster, the stronger the monster got. But when you do the opposite, when you truly accept and love it and integrate it, through a vision of authorship, through a lens of simulation mastery, and knowing about all these tools, and the loops and everything, it really helps you, stop being so hard on yourself, and you can release all this, I need for this to happen, I need for this to change, and truly just change yourself, and then everything starts kind of flowing from there naturally.
Yeah, it's like our focus changes from overfitting, which is a concept I teach in
Overfitting.
simulation mastery, where our we become so, let's say, obsessed with and preoccupied with one desire and one type of output that we change we it becomes overtrained on that. And now we can't generalize. We can't be productive in other areas. We can't create, and we can't we can't transfer learn in some areas versus the other. So absolutely that happens. And it's something that happens a lot in the Neville community because there's not right now that checks and balances, the grounding. I was thinking about how Neville had weekly lectures or monthly lectures, or whatever he'd had. He had a place. People were in the audience. He had Q&A, and so that structure is absolutely needed. And there's tons of different kinds of programs out there, but it kind of comes back to, I think, what Moon Bunny said in the chat, where she said, I think it was a really important comment. So she said, what stands out for me with all the information so far is that it conveys a deep sense of support versus pushing a cure-all, be-all, and end-all concept. No woo, no magical thinking. And I want to be honest about that. That this isn't a manifest your SP program. This is not a get $1 million by the end of this, or it's not specific. It's not tuned into a specific desire like that, because we are broader. We know that it's actually the programmer within us, the author within us, that needs to shift the story that we're telling at any given moment, whether in whatever setting we find ourselves in. So that is fantastic. thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Every single one of you for sharing. I mean,
Can I,
I'm,
can, can I say something
yeah,
real quick? Okay.
absolutely.
So, so I would say that, like, with this program in general, like, things just go into a flow of things, you know? Um, I've like, well, not, I wouldn't necessarily say manifested, but like, my boyfriend has said to me that, like, you're the only one that I know that, like, jobs come to you. You know what I mean? And like, you're not having to, do anything, it's like they just flock to you because of your energy. And that's what this program does, right? It's like it just flows. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say that when you're in the flow and when you're in alignment to whatever you want, you it comes easier and it comes faster and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, and when you know yourself, because so much
Yeah,
of this is what Josiah was saying earlier, you have less noise, more signal. I
exactly.
had to come to this place where, and this happened in this cohort, honestly. I had to come to a place where the scripts that my friends were having, married, kids,
Right.
job that looked perfect on paper, and the cultural factors of me being Indian and what that means. I had to be okay with that being noise and like strengthen my signal and say, you know what?
Mhm.
I need to figure out what it is I want, and that means stepping away from the scripts. And that's when that flow happens, Orlena. And that's what your boyfriend is noticing in you, which is really cool. And that's what we notice in you too, because every time you come onto like any platform that we're sharing, like my vibration goes way, way up, I have to say. So thank you. Thank you for that. Any
Awesome.
other final thoughts? I did have kind of an interesting little mini peek, a mini practice I'd like to go through. But any final thoughts from anyone? Josiah, any other thoughts? Okay, we feel complete. We feel good. Awesome. So I thought this could be a cool opportunity to show a very, very small sneak peek of the kind of practices that we walk, people through in Brave Mystic training. We use Discord. It's an audio first program. So because of that, you can kind of like really drop in and you can really drop in and experience things experientially. And we sometimes have a lecture portion where we go into details about different concepts and history and facts and science. So there's a lot going on. But let me give you a little mini lesson for beginners. And I'm going to start with, everyone's talking about nervous system sovereignty. And so what does that actually mean? It means that your heart, brain, and gut, so your heart, which has a brain of its own, so heart brain, head brain, and gut brain, starts to get into a state of coherence. And when you have that state of coherence and you practice it enough, the dysregulation that we've been talking about becomes less and less likely to happen. That becomes less the default reaction to the ups and downs of life, the furnaces of affliction, as Neville would put it. And so, when we have three intelligence centers in the body, that is even mainstream science agrees. This heart, brain, and gut coherence, we can start to map out, okay, so if I am an expression of consciousness that's creating my reality, what am I built up of? My I am creates my reality, but let's add a little structure here. So what we know through mainstream science and also through the research of Heart Math Institute is that the heart is intelligent at processing emotional signals. So emotional signals in the world around you, when you pick up on something, that's your heart processing that. And your heart is incredibly powerful. More signals go upwards from the heart to the brain and then back downwards than any other way. It's an incredibly powerful organ, an incredibly powerful center. And your heart actually creates electromagnetic waves that can be felt many meters beyond you. And it can be felt by other human beings, but also animals. And that's been tested as well. So any living being, we can extrapolate that to, can experience your heart signal. It's not woo woo, as we would put it. It's actually something measurable. And I think that's important to start with because we often give consciousness and intelligence, we give that the brain, the head brain, all of the, it's almost like all of the purpose there, or we give it the main, we think of it as the main arbiter of your consciousness, but actually your heart is where it's everything starts, your heart and your heartbeat. Then there is the head brain, which is an incredible machine. It is one of the most complex, incredible supercomputers that scientists are still trying to make sense of how the heck this thing works. It's neuroplastic, and so are the other hearts in your body, by the way. All other brains. All of the brains in your body are neuroplastic, which means it can remember, it can rewrite, it can delete, and it processes thoughts and perception. It's the immediate it processes the immediate environment around you, and it's an incredibly important organ when guided well with the heart's intelligence. It's like your heart is the master of the mind that kind of exists in the brain. And then there's the gut. The gut brain is, it feels very, probably what I'm saying so far feels very obvious because it's colloquially known. Our gut is our intuition, our wisdom, our instincts. There's a deeper sort of, when we say something's guttural, there's like a deeper reaction when we know that something's off, that's multiple brains are kicking in. Maybe you saw something and processed something in your head brain, your heart brain processed a sense of danger or fear, and your gut brain said, okay, these people are up to no good. I see that my instinct is kicking in, that this is not the right scenario for me. So this happens all the time. We have these three brains at a minimum. There's probably more where that came from. But there's three brains at a minimum that are processing the reality around you at any given moment. What do we need to do? We want to master those three brain centers and bring them into alignment. And we want to do that because when we do that, our sense of identity, that I am state, our sense of identity is more stable. We can, when we're in a state of coherence, we can remember who we are more effectively. We can react from the new state that we've created more effectively. It's a practical way to live life in the end. It's almost like once you practice coherence, living in the end becomes natural and easy because you're living in the end of a state of coherence. So I want to make it clear that when we say coherence, what we're saying is a physiologically measurable state where your heart, brain, and gut are aligned, and signals are going through clearly. There's very little noise and there's more signal. That doesn't mean you're happy-go-lucky, like feeling like you're on mushrooms on like a cloud nine all the time. That's not true. You can be in a state of coherence and be very aligned with your purpose, and also decide, to quit a job or to leave a relationship that isn't serving you, or to process negative feelings. And so it's not a positivity bubble that we're trying to create. We're creating a strengthened way of being that takes into account the three intelligence centers of the body. And it's important to know that, like, for most people out there, we live in a world, in a reality where these three brains get out of sync pretty easily. It happens, it's like, our thoughts are racing one way, our feelings another. You're like, I know I should do this, but I don't want to. And like, you have all these like funky feelings about something, and your gut is like churning because you know that this isn't right for you, but you're still, moving forward. Essentially, coherence is when all of these three intelligence centers and rhythms line up to one signal. And research shows that this changes your nervous system's ability to handle stress. Because think about it, what happens? Let's say you're creating something new, you're imagining something new. What happens? We all know this, we know the drill. 3D starts to shove. Sometimes 3D tries to shove all of the circumstances of like why this cannot happen in your face. What do you need at that time? You need fantastic stress management. You need coherence to know, what, that I disagree. Thank you, 3D reality, but I disagree. I actually assert that this is the truth about me. That takes a level of coherence. That takes a level of state endurance that really ties into your ability to align these three centers. So it's, when you think of heart, brain, gut coherence, think of it as a state that you are training yourself to create so that you can live in the end effectively. And this is kind of like, so those are the three brains. I wanted to introduce the second concept here, which is about fascia. And fascia is a term that I don't actually see used a whole lot. There's this thing called a fascia blaster, which is essentially a tool that some woman sells by the millions and became a millionaire off of, that's supposed to help with cellulite. Can't speak to that tool. Then there's all kinds of, people in yoga and functional medicine and, athletes that talk about fascia here and there. So, but it's something that is actually still being explored. People still don't fully understand the magic, the role that fascia plays in the body. And in fact, for most of medical history, surgeons threw away this connective tissue that exists in the body. So let me tell you what fascia actually is. Fascia is a connective tissue web. It's the connective tissue web, and it goes through your entire body. There's not really like even a millimeter in your body where there's not a fascia running through it. You can kind of think of it as like a wiring system, like an antenna. When I think of fascia, I think of like a scuba suit antenna that has a ton of nerves. Those nerves, you can think of those as wiring, and it's like a transmitter. It's a transmitter that transmits mechanical, electrical, and biochemical signals. And it does that incredibly fast. Think of it like an electric antenna that's throughout your entire body, head to foot, and it's looping throughout the body. You can think of it as the antenna that actually works with the three brains. It works with the three brains to allow your heart rhythm in its ideal, your brain waves synchronize ideally, and your gut pulses. It plays an important role in the three intelligence centers because from head to toe, it wraps everything up, and it's sending communication signals through this electric wiring. And so you think of heart, brain, gut coherence, and you think, okay, I'm also encased in this fascia. Like, what does that mean? And this is where I'll kind of pull out here is, Neville talked about how essentially God is your I am identity. That's what God is who you're claiming yourself to be at any given moment. And when I think of the part of me that's pushed out, like let's say I know I am consciousness, and I think of, okay, what part of me is the first thing pushed out? Let's say it's my body, right? My body is me pushed out. It's my first expression. It's like the initial expression of my reality. And so when I look at the body and I look at my specific unique node of reality, my specific unique version of me, my three brains and my fascia, those are expressions of my I am consciousness. And so I started to realize that when I think of consciousness, if I start to structure them as these three intelligences at the very least, and then with fascia, I had a way better understanding of how to sustain that I am who I wanted to be. I had a interface that I could program and work with, that took into account all levels of consciousness within the body. Because scientists for a very long time thought only the head brain was creating consciousness. What we now know is that there's at least three brains in the body. There's also a biofield that is being emitted from the body, and fascia plays an incredibly important role in our state of conscious awareness. So all of these aspects of our body play like an interfacing role. And it's the reason I wanted to share this with the Brave Mystic Training cohort is that it helped. When we talk about nervous system sovereignty, what we're saying is, I am, and no one else can take that away from me. I am, and no matter what you show me out there, I can be stable. And so if we kind of bring kind of the Neville concept in, we can say that when we're in the state of coherence and when we have fascia, and we start to tune into what the fascia is saying, and we start to rewire the fascia, which will in the program we get into a little deeper. When we start to do that, our heart says, I am love. Our heart knows I am love. It knows its identity. Our brain says, I am awareness. So your brain knows its role. It knows its identity. And the gut, I am being. So when we take nervous system sovereignty seriously, we can kind of, and this ties into the fact that Neville Goddard was a dancer and an actor. And so his dancing and acting ability really shows that he was able to hold a pose with his body. And so we kind of bring in that teaching in a updated way with kind of the latest science here. So that was a little background on some of these concepts, and now I want to bring you into kind of a quick beginner-friendly practice that helps you tune in to these three brains. So if I can invite everyone that's listening to close your eyes, feet grounded to the floor. We place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Close your eyes if they aren't already. Now, I want you to imagine that within you right now, there is a web. Think of from the top of your head to your feet within you, that there is an interconnecting web. Use a spider web for a reference point. Just try to start imagining that there's web-like substance throughout your entire body. And imagine that this web-like substance is doing a very important role holding everything together. It's holding everything together within your body, this web-like substance. And the substance is alive. Has thousands upon thousands of nerves and electrical signals firing off every millisecond, doing the very important job of holding your body in shape. Now, breathe and I want you to breathe deeply into your chest as deeply as you can. And as you do this, I want you to imagine warmth spreading through the web, starting in your heart space. So imagine there's warmth and it's spreading throughout the web, starting from your heart space. And as it expands, feel it pulsing. Hands still on your heart. As this expands, whispered inwardly or aloud, I am love. Say it again. I am love. Imagine that warmth that is emanating from your heart getting stronger and stronger. Now shift your attention to your head brain. You can even put your hand on your forehead. Now imagine that the web around it, imagine the web that's around your brain. As you do that, soften your scalp muscles if you can. Let go of any tension in your temples and jaw. Just try to imagine that there's a web supporting your entire head, your brain. Now imagine that in your brain center, in your head center, there's generating its own warmth. generating its own warmth, radiating through the web of your head. And imagine now that the energy, the warming energy from your heart space and the warming energy from your head space, they're colliding, they're joining, it's spreading together like two waves merging. So you feel the warmth in your heart space and your head space. Feel it merging. You'd say to yourself, I am awareness. I am awareness. Now, you can bring your focus and your hand to your belly and pelvis. Deep breath in and out. I want you to visualize that web, that fascia web. And just visualize it. So you let go of your tummy. Just let it be. Visualize that that web is loosening. It's loosening and relaxing. Now, imagine that in the center of your gut, that you're generating warmth, generating warmth and energy. As it starts to do that, it spreads through the web around the gut, getting stronger and stronger. And now you notice that as it spreads, like waves colliding, it collides with the waves of energy from your heart, from your head brain. Imagine the warmth energy from the gut brain colliding in waves, your heart brain. And whisper to yourself, I am being. I am being. Just imagine that warm energy colliding in waves. You go up to your brain, then go down to your heart and then your gut. It's looping back and forth in a natural wave rhythm. Now, tell yourself, I am being loving awareness. I am being loving awareness. I want you to breathe in for 6 counts. 3, 4, 5, 6. And release for 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as you do that, just your awareness now that you have these 3 brains, you have this fascia. Just this awareness starts to bring your being into coherence. Just this focus allows your awareness to awaken the 3 centers. Just this simple practice of noticing each center becoming aware, slowing down your breathing, that brings you into a state of coherence. So you can open your eyes whenever you're ready. I think something simple like this is really effective, because what Heart Math Institute found is just at least starting with taking a deep breath for 6 seconds and starting to um, regulate your breath was a key to inducing a straight state of coherence, because you have all these automatic processes. You have the autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic system. You have all these automatic processes, and your breath is kind of the key there, and your awareness too. So hopefully that you could kind of experience that. You could kind of start tuning into the different three intelligences. And that was just a small little sneak peek of what you might start to um, understand and get to know more about yourself in the program.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shweta, for guiding us through that preview of the nervous system sovereignty practice. So we do teach this. It's one of the core practices that we were talking about in the beginning. We do teach this, and it's not just about teaching it. It's about doing it, practicing it, being it every day for this focused container of space. And if you speak to the graduates, they'll tell you that they still have been doing it even after the container. It's like the container is really getting into the rhythm, into the groove of it. And then even when the container is officially done, the 99 days are officially over, this is now a life skill that serves you for the rest of your life. I mean, several members talk about how they're teaching their friends, they're teaching their family members, they're teaching their kids. This is a gift. Nervous system sovereignty is the gift that keeps on giving. I just want to commend everyone for their courage, all of the brave mystics that joined us today, for their courage in joining us for this sharing and just sharing so openly and so authentically. It's very beautiful. And, just to have a chance to peek behind the curtain and see the real world impact of the training. There's really only so much that we can write on a webpage, and we can only talk about it so much. I think really having the opportunity to hear it straight from the people who have been in the program is really the best way to surface and highlight the value of a training like this. Registration is now open for cohort number 2. We are starting a week from tomorrow with the beginning of the 14 weeks. And here's the key idea. You encounter a training like BMT exactly when you're ready. The call itself is part of the training. It's, to use hero's journey language, it is the call to adventure. It's the call to authorship. It's the call to step up and to stand a little taller in your life, be a little bolder, and certainly to be braver. If you heard yourself or saw yourself in any of the sharing of the Brave Mystic graduates today, that might be your invitation to join us. Maybe that's your soul saying that you're ready. Final thought here is, as we wrap up, authorship begins the moment that we remember that the pen is in our hands. And Brave Mystic training is your container to train that remembrance. It's a focused container of space. This training will take us from September into early December, right before the holidays. This is your opportunity to focus. It's like back to school. It's back to mystery school. It's your opportunity to focus on the one skill that really is the skill of life, authorship. 14 weeks, your focus on authorship, emerging in December, ready to take on 2026 with state endurance, with a new practice of nervous system sovereignty, with a deepened, refined, and enriched awareness of who you are, and walking that path that entire time, not alone, but with a cohort of mystics who are holding that field with you. So again, thank you to the graduates who bravely and boldly shared. Thank you to everybody on YouTube who is watching this live. And if it calls to you, all of the relevant links are in the description. And even if you're thinking, I don't think I'm ready for this yet, at least join our Discord community. It's how we're serving mystics like you. We have live programming, live radio hours. We have guest speakers that come in and talk on the voice stages. It is so rich. There's so much for you Even if you're not ready for a premium container like Brave Mystic Training, the Discord server can still be your home. So I encourage you to join us. And if you are ready to hop into Brave Mystic Training, go ahead and secure your seat now. And we're happy to welcome you on the other side. Any final thoughts, Shweta, as we wrap up?
No, I think we've said a lot today. And so I'm hoping those with the ears to listen and the open heart can see the signal through any noise that was there. And I'm happy to see who's going to join us for Cohort 2.
Thank you so much. All right, my friends, that's all for today. Till next time, imagine wisely, and we'll see you all again in the next.